Good evening, everybody. It's me, Comic Crack. It's Sunday, and I'm here for the usual weekly wrap up. How's everybody's week going? How's the Sabra first appearance selling for you guys out there? Um, we had a chat this afternoon, me and Rasa, over on Rasa's channel. Go and check that out if you want to see the stuff we talked about today. We talked about a boatload of stuff. So go and check it out. Next week, Sunday, we should be back on my channel doing a chat. I'm going to start on some books that I didn't talk about on the stream. There's always a bunch of books lately. I've been reading quite a bit more during the week. I'm at 566 as far as the comic goal goes as that update. So we've got a bunch of books to talk about, but I should show first of all my Brutal Truth shirt. Extreme conditions demand extreme responses. Brutal Truth, one of the best of the kind of grindcore bands in my estimation. I saw them on this tour, actually. I just got this shirt recently. I didn't get it on that tour. They were opening for Napalm Death, and they played in a bar downtown Winnipeg. And I went to see Napalm Death. Had no idea about the opening band. These guys, Dan Lilliker from Nuclear Assault was in the band as well too. So that was a surprise. And they kind of blew me out of the water. They blew Napalm Death off the stage. If we want to really get into it, they were incredible. And I've seen it since. On one of their last tours, I saw them as well too. They came through town, and that was equally mind-blowing. They were a hell of a band. This is that first record that kind of had the biggest impact on me at the time. Check them out if you're into any of that extreme shit. Let's start with these. I think one of these was a Nate present. This is the 3-issue miniseries from North Star from 1991. I think 1991, 1992. Does it have the year in here? I thought it did. Oh, 1989. Look at that. I was wrong. This is a 3-issue series called Omen. Tim Vigil on art here, and it's kind of what you would expect to some degree. This was the first one I had, and it was this cover that really, really caught my attention on this issue number 2. Phenomenal work in this book. The comic itself is kind of a pretty basic setup for a superhero universe. The year is 3887. And so we go back in time to 1989, and then we jump forward in time to 3887 as the origin of the superhero called Omen comes to be. But this book is outstanding because of the Kirby crackle, the Marvel look, like the Kirby vibes all through this book. Every surface is a super shiny metallic surface, especially once you get into issue number 2. It's not as apparent in this one, in this first issue. It was a bit of a slog to read, to be honest. But once I kind of read every third word and then every fourth word and then kind of gleaned the the text boxes just to get the gist of things and focused on the art, I enjoyed it way, way more. There's so many incredible panels in this one. There's some really good use of like some zip tone. But man, oh man, it's that ink on the page that is so fucking impressive. Let's see if we can find, we might have to go to issue number 2. There's also that sort of Todd McFarlane-esque kind of image stylization in some of the characters as well. Like I look at a figure like this and it just kind of reminds me of kind of that era of Image, that superhero era of Image. Right or wrong, that's what it reminds me of. Stuff like this is pretty fantastic. I mean, every surface on our superhero's helmet, on our villains' robots, everything single surface is just incredibly shiny and metallic. And he does just incredible work showing that off. The other thing that was pretty great about this one. I mean, if that's not a Marvel type splash page, what else do you got for me? There's some kind of abstractions that end up going on too, which I always love with some of these books when they're dealing with light and they're dealing with dark and they're trying to do certain things with it. You kind of get some of these panels that are filled with a lot more of these abstract type shapes. You can make out what they are. This isn't the best example, but like these real tight shots and stuff sometimes give way to really nice just shapes within a page. Let's see here. There was one that really stood out to me in this issue. This isn't it, but I got to show you more of this. Like, look at this stuff. Come on, focus. Let's get it all in the screen there. I don't know if that's focusing or not, but hopefully you're getting the gist of that. I don't know how easy these books are to find. It did take a while to find the first issue. But I'd recommend keeping your eyes open for it. That panel there is pretty phenomenal. There's one where the light flashes. Yeah, here we go. This is the one here. So all we get are these black shapes of this machinery there. And I think that is such a great effect. That is clearly, to me, a flash of light. Maybe it's on the wrong side of the piece of the machine, the back side there, because the flash is coming from kind of the front of it. But still, I think when work gets into this kind of realm where you're really dealing with stuff that's very much comics language and comics shapes, that's the stuff that really resonates with me about some of these guys' work. Really great to look through. Like I said, the story ain't shit to write home about, in my opinion, but they're worth it just to soak in these pages of Mr. Vigil. So I think this one only went 3 issues. I think there was plans for it to be more, as there often is with these books, but as far as I understand it, none of those happened. So that's Omen. What else do we have that we didn't talk about? We did talk about these Usagi. They just happen to be on the top of the pile here. Great mini-series so far. 2 issues in. I think this is the first work of Usagi back at Dark Horse. A surprising cover for me. This is a Scotty Young, but when I went to buy the second issue, this was the only copy they had left of the first issue, but actually I don't mind that cover one bit. It's been a great read so far. I'm looking forward to kind of jumping back on this book and kind of sticking with it this time. I did dip in when I bought that first black and white collection, but since then I haven't really committed to it as much as I had wanted to. It's also a book that Rasa is reading as well too, so it's nice to read some of these books together so we can talk about them on our weekly chats. Try to sort of clean up as I'm going here, so forgive me for the delays. And I was also saying this afternoon that issue number 2, I think I might have said it on this channel too, an homage to the first appearance of Usagi from Albedo issue number 2 on this cover. And it turns out Rasa was looking as we were chatting. There's a few kind of covers that have been used using this as a template. One for another Usagi Yojimbo series, issue number 8 of whatever volume that was. And then there's one with Winnie the Pooh on the cover, which is exciting for me, as you can hear by my little giggle. I need to find that copy. We're huge Pooh Bear fans around here. I've read those books multiple times with the kids growing up, and they are one of the most fun books to read out loud that I think I've ever read with the kids. They were such a blast to read them out loud with my children. Let's go maybe here, and then we'll go there. Okay, so this afternoon I went to a shop that I don't go to very much, mainly because it's just pretty pricey. They don't have the biggest selection of back issues. It's not a bad shop for back issues, but honestly, the prices on a lot of the stuff are kind of a little bit out to lunch, to put it nicely. I stopped in there today though because I've been looking to fill in a couple of gaps from the Firefly series that I'm reading. I wanted to find issue number 2 and issue number 4 specifically, so I could have like the first 14 books, so I could start reading deeper than issue number 1. So I was hoping to find a couple of them there instead of having to order away from them from my comic shop or something, which is obviously going to be pricier, dealing with shipping and things. He had one of the issues, and while I was there, I found a couple of other things, just 2 other things. One of those was what I thought was a pack of Melting Pot issues number 1 to 4. Turns out it was only issue number 1 and 2. But what was included in here was the Tundra sketchbook series. This is book number 1. This is the Melting Pot sketchbook from Tundra. These sketchbook series books seem to be popping up all of a sudden. I don't know what's going on or what that means, or if I'm just hyper focused on it these days. But what a find! And this is really good. So Melting Pot was Kevin Eastman and Eric Talbot doing their own book. It was supposed to come out in 1989. Apparently there was a 2-year delay. It eventually came out in the new year. I think, was it 1991? Yeah. Or was it 1992? So this issue came out in 1990. So 1991 is when it eventually did come out. So a 2-year delay on the book. We get a little bit of an intro there from Eastman, just talking about what you're going to see. The first chunk of the book is character sketches and designs, which is really great to see. I guess originally this Melting Pot was supposed to come out as 2 square-bound volumes. That didn't happen as far as I know. It came out in floppy format, but obviously was a good kind of project to be an impetus for a really fascinating series of sketchbooks that Tundra ended up doing. A bunch that we've looked at here on the channel over the past few months. We also, once we get past all the character designs, looking very Richard Corbin looking right there. That creature. Straight out of a Corbin book there, which would make sense seeing as big fans of his they were. We also get some color pages too, some splash pages here. Looks like mostly marker coloring, I think, but really great designs. I just love the style so much, and the coloring is really great. Bisley eventually did the coloring in the Melting Pot miniseries, so this kind of gives you a look. I don't know if it's him doing coloring on here. If it is, he's not credited, or at least wasn't credited as far as I could see. And then at the end, what else do we get? So I think it was a convention mini that they released originally before it. So they have that recreated on the top half of a few pages, and then some layouts for book 1 on the bottom half of the pages. A really nice way to present it. Daryl D. TV, how you doing, man? So nice to kind of get to read that little mini, which just really introduces you to the world. And it's this sort of battle world is what you're dealing with, and creature wanting to become ruler of that world. So it's kind of thin on plot, but fantastic to look at. So a nice way to lay out that stuff. And then finally in the book, we get some ads and t-shirt designs. So ads for the book that was going to come out in summer of 1989. Fantastic find. I was a little disappointed that the entire Melting Pot wasn't there, because I do think I have issues 1 and 2 already. But nice to have this thrown in. And please, someone correct me, because now I'm starting to question myself. Were there actually 4 issues, or did 2 only ever get published? And maybe I do have everything. And if that's the case, I've got doubles of Melting Pot. I don't know how hard Melting Pot is to find or not. And then just a few last notes from him. So fantastic score there. Really, really great. maybe I'll jump to that one, and then we'll come back to a couple more that I didn't talk about this afternoon. One of the other things I found while I was there, I did find one single issue of Firefly, issue number 4. So I'm just missing issue number 2. But I couldn't pass this one up. I know it's been collected. I've never seen the floppies before. This one was a little pricey. I got it anyway, against maybe my better judgment. But I was pretty damn excited to find this single issue. I think this was a 3 or 4 issue miniseries from the one and only James Stokoe from 2017, I think. Yeah, April of 2017. I just recently watched Alien again for I don't know how many times I've seen it now. And it feels like it's one of those movies that every time I see it, I know this is very cliche, but it's true. Something different about it stands out to me. One of the things that's always stood out to me was how kind of lived in the world was when you get into the ship. And I think that's one of the things that really stood out to people at the time as well. Not everything was crisp and white and surgical. The other thing that stood out to me is just the intro of the movie, the way the word alien appears on the screen, the design of kind of giving you that title, the fact that there's no dialogue for the first little bit of the movie and you're just kind of in the space. And Stokoe does an amazing job of kind of recreating some of that vibe at the beginning of the story. The only dialogue we get for the first 4 or 5 pages are just 2 word balloons from the computer, from the spaceship itself. Donald Rex, hello. So really sets the mood. We then turn the page and we're in the before. So we've seen what happens in the aftermath, or at least a snapshot of what potentially has gone on. And now we get to back up and see the whole story. He also handles the characters really well. One of the other things that's appealing about Alien is that these guys are laborers on this ship. They're not kind of scientists. They're not kind of the usual that you would see in these situations. These are like the garbage men of space to some degree, right? So they're rough and tumble. Sigourney Weaver's character was also, or Sigourney Weaver herself rather, was not well received on that set. And a couple of the guys really, really read her the riot act. Ridley Scott is a notorious piece of shit as a director to deal with for a lot of people, not everybody. But he's kind of a taskmaster, and he kind of rakes her over the coals too. So he manages to capture some of that with these characters here. These aren't polished, proper people. I'm not going to show you any further than this page because things start to pick up after this point. So I think it's a really, really strong intro from Stokoe here. We do get kind of his usual color palette, but it's way more subdued than it has been in pretty much all of his other work, which I like his color palette. I do feel at times that it's overused, where I get a little tired of it. So it was nice to kind of see something that's very recognizably Stokoe, but a little more kind of subdued, which I think matches the tone that he's going for in the book. We have to get the aliens on the ship somehow. He sets it up really well in this one. We do get a money shot at the end, as well as on the cover here, of his version of the aliens themselves. So I'm looking forward to what I'm sure is going to be absolute carnage in issue number 2. I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to find the other floppies. They're not something that I've seen around there as much of the aliens books that I do see these days. This isn't one that I run across, so I think I might end up just, pardon me, getting the collection and having it all in one chunk, and then crossing my fingers that maybe I will find these single issues at some point. So a great read, very much recommended so far, based on reading of just one of the issues. Another book I read this week. This was one of the pickups from my comic shop.com, Lone Star. Misspent Youths, issue number 1 from Brave New Words. A long time ago, I talked about issue number 3 that I randomly got. And just kind of my interest in Brave New Words was the first thing that got me into wanting to pick it up. The second with this series was the kind of similarities between the art style in here, it's not very, very close, but there is some things that are reminiscent of like a Matt Howarth type of vibe with this style of art. This was a very strange book. It seems to kind of be all over the place as far as never really knowing which way it's going to turn. What year do we got on this one? 1991 is the year on this. 5 or 6 issue miniseries is what this was. So we kind of get introduced to some of our main characters that we've seen in the other issue here: musicians, punk rockers, metalheads, drug addicts, sexual deviants. It's all here. Homosexual characters, straight characters, men and women as main characters. Quite a little world. Our little kind of punk rock metal looking dude here is very philosophical in the way that he speaks. It was intriguing. I don't really know what to make of this first issue, other than this is an introduction to people. And there's a little bit of, we start to get some of the sort of metaphysical stuff, or demons or monsters or supernatural, maybe is the better way to say it, when we get this creature that's born out of a toilet that kind of takes most of the people by surprise, but not all of them. One of our main characters seems to know this creature, this entity, and so it's really bizarre. I don't really know what to make of it. Here we go. Here's where he's kind of greeting him here. So again, it's one of those issues where the story kind of leads me to believe that, was there a series previous to this? Are these characters that we should know? I think he alludes to writing with these characters before. Maybe some mini comics or something. I don't quite remember. This was early in the week that I read this one. Yeah, so absolutely intriguing. Looking forward to reading some more. This one didn't kind of sell me as much as issue 3 did. I thought issue 3 was a pretty solid read, but I am curious to how what I read here makes its way to issue number 3. So we'll see. They're high on the list to finish that series off. You spent too much dough tonight on eBay. That can happen there, Donald. Picked up 3 cool old Alex Toth comics. That's pretty awesome. How old are we talking? And the one and only Gore Vidal. Hello, Gore Vidal. It is madness. All of it is madness. Very, very unusual books here tonight. I'm not going to open all of these up here. 5 and 6. This is Lycanthrope Leo that I've talked about before. This is the Viz manga about a werewolf, and what is turning into, by the time we get to issue number 6, is a whole litany of these gods, or these races of half animal, half human, that he's starting to come into contact with in this one here, this bull kind of character. He meets a couple other ones during these issues as well too. It really fell off for me pretty damn quickly, but by issue number 6 it picked up a little bit more. There's only one more issue that Viz put out. I don't see it wrapping up in that 7th issue. Considering what kind of storyline we're talking about here, it feels like this is just the beginning to an enormous world that probably went volumes and volumes of manga series in Japan. So I don't know where this is going to go after this. The artwork is still really impressive in this series, but I do have to admit that the story kind of fell apart for me a little bit there. There was some really good moments, but I think it started out, that first issue started out really strong, very, very intriguing. The beauty with a lot of this manga is that they are very quick to read. So I kind of whipped through these pretty fast. So I didn't feel like the story dragged at any time. It just started losing my interest a bit. One Western from 1951 in fragments, the other 70s romance books. Incredible. I know you like werewolves, preferring them to vampires. Yep, after seeing Ginger Snaps or Miss Agutter and Werewolf in London, can't blame you. Yeah, Ginger Snaps is a fucking fantastic movie, man. I think that's kind of like an underrated werewolf movie. I think Ginger Snaps was fantastic when I first saw it. So maybe we'll stick with manga before we talk about these other two, our last two oddities. So just a few more books to go here. But these ones I'll probably have the most to say. And we're going to start off again with Viz. We're going to continue on rather with Viz Sanctuary. I had the first 5 issues for quite a while. Recently, I found book number 6 and book number 7. All of these are kind of double length. These are really beefy volumes. This is an unbelievably interesting book. I am absolutely hooked on this. This is, again, it's one of those situations when you find a manga that you really like, it makes it very easy to see why people would want to read another 10 volumes. Because if the story kind of keeps going the way that it is here, I'm absolutely on board with this. I'm so intrigued with this world. I'm so intrigued with where this story is going. I'm very intrigued with our 2 main characters. Issue number 7 gave us a little bit more of a peek into where they come from. I love the art in this. There seems like there's some heavily photo-referenced art in here. There's a lot of kind of backgrounds and things. There's some use of zipatones, but stuff like this seems very much posed out from like fashion magazines, for example. And I really, really dig that. There's also, you know, a lot of sex and nudity, which is not a bad thing. With people's genitals just whited out, not even blurred out, just not even there. Such a phenomenal book. So the basic premise is our 2 main characters have grown up together in what we find out is Cambodia, and they've witnessed some incredibly horrific things in their life. They made a pact with each other that they are going to get into positions where they can make changes in Japan. One of them gets into politics and the other one gets into the Yakuza. And the kind of deal that they make is each of them in their chosen fields are going to rise to the top of those fields and then come back together so they can, between the 2 of them and now the sort of quote unquote army that they've amassed within their worlds, they can really make some changes. So with our Yakuza story here, he's finally at a point where he's done and he wants to kind of advance his place within the world. And by doing so, he goes to see the boss with a couple of his own sort of henchmen, I guess, who've kind of decided to throw their lot in with him and kind of give the boss the ultimatum that this is the way things are going to go, whether you fucking like it or not. Of course, the boss isn't too fond of it. So our very last page of issue number 5 here, he shoots him in the head. And that's kind of how this issue ends, which is an incredibly strong finish. But it just kind of continues from there. I love the different art styles that are being employed. We get a reminder on page 1 here of what's happened. We now see that he's sort of shot him in the back of the head, in the neck. So he's actually shot him where he's not going to die immediately. So to send a very strong message, spoiler alert, he doesn't make it. Our man becomes the new dawn of the Yakuza clan here, with plans to kind of move off into other areas of Japan to spread their kind of control and their power. when we get, yeah, here's some stuff here where some really amazing looking use of what looks to me like photographs and blending them in, pardon me, with the regular kind of manga style. We look at we get a little bit of more insight into some more whited out. This is kind of his right hand man, who is extremely vicious. He just got out of jail, and he actually just does not give a single shit about anybody. And he's actually, it's again another well written character, because you've always got to have that one kind of tough guy, extra tough guy in any sort of gang environment that you need to believe that they could go off at any minute, like the Joe Pesci of the gang, right? That could just go off at any minute and put a bullet in your head. So he is that guy for him. So that's how kind of intense of a character he is. And he is stunned to see the savagery and the not savagery, the intensity of his new Yakuza boss when they come across a scene where a guy on a motorcycle has been hit by a truck and gets his fucking head knocked off in a pretty brutal looking scene there on a couple of pages. So his body's lying there. The big tough guy is like shaken. You can see that he's shaken. And our new Yakuza boss, our new Yakuza Don, doesn't even hesitate. He goes over to the truck, finds the head, picks it up, and places it with the body and puts his jacket over it. And all we get is, I think our new Don has seen more horrible things than we can imagine. And it turns out that it's true that he, this is Sanctuary. Sorry, I'll get to your comments here. Hello, Cthulhu Hand. Look, Luke. This is a Sanctuary we're talking about there. This is where we get the flashbacks to, sorry, wrong page, to Cambodia. And we have our two main characters there kind of placed in this photograph. Again, this real mix. Sometimes it doesn't work as smoothly, but even that really works for me. I just find it fascinating to turn the pages on this thing, because you never really know what to expect from page to page. So we get a nice kind of couple page layout here of the violence that they were seeing. And when they were young, they witnessed all sorts of horrors, and they were tasked along with a bunch of other children to dig the mass graves that the bodies got dumped in. And if they showed any sign of weakness, they got a bullet put in their head as well and dumped into these mass graves. So really incredible issue with giving you some insight into like why these guys are so driven and so fucking intense. A hell of a book, man. I know that there's a million books that I always end up recommending every single week. I realize that, but honestly, this is one from this week that I would say keep an eye out, check those dollar bins, check those $2 bins. If you can find this, start from the beginning. Don't just jump in anywhere. Try your best to start from the beginning, and give that a shot, because it's a hell of a read. Let's see what I missed here. Always love seeing what you pick up. Thank you very much, Donald. I love kind of sitting here with you all every week and talking about stuff that I've read. Likeness to Alain Delon. Yeah, absolutely. Maybe because last night saw Purple Noon, the first Talented Mr. Ripley adaptation, which starred Delon. Oh, excellent film. I don't know that one. Surprises me with the reading. Yes, Sanctuary. Yes, he dives into stuff I lived through without being very aware of it in the day. And I think that that's a similar thing to what's happening now. I could see myself 10 years from now listening to people talking about books that are currently coming out that you just don't have an idea about. There's just so much to kind of, you just can't possibly get into everything. Buying these books, I'm sending you the bill. Copy that. I'll make sure that I send you my real address. Yeah, the artwork is beautiful, Daryl. I don't know how many books there are, Gore. I think Viz makes it really fucking difficult. They break a story down into volumes, but they call those volumes part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5, and then they put the issue number as book number 6 or book 7. So I always end up getting them confused. I think this went from Viz 5 or 6 volumes. Rasa was looking online this afternoon, and it's gone well beyond that. But I don't know. The other thing with a lot of this stuff is I never know how much of it has been translated. Sometimes they just kind of translate a chunk of it because there's just too much. And if it doesn't kind of strike a big note, they're not going to waste a lot of time translating all the books. So they give you a nice sampling of it. I also know that sometimes with this stuff, they published it out of order. This one feels like it was being released in the correct order because the story kind of makes sense chronologically. But the short answer is I don't know how many. Hello, Gun Man. You have so many different kinds of comics. Never heard of. Where do you find them all? Just comic shops. My comic shop is just Marvel, DC, and Image back issues. Just comic shops around town. Comic shops online. I've got so many lists on phones and wish lists on websites. So I kind of end up just cycling through that stuff. There are a ton of indie comics in the 50-cent dollar bins here in Phoenix. A super sweet spot for me has always been the clearance drawers at half-priced books, which are located all over the country. Amazing. Okay, yeah, it is a bit frustrating, Gore. It makes it difficult when you're trying to hunt for this stuff, and especially when you want to read it in order, as I do. And I think this is necessary with some of this stuff. So put those over there. Just a couple of more books to talk about tonight. These ones I also discussed on Rasa's channel in our afternoon chat, so I won't be offended if some of you who were there leave the building. Terminal Comics, probably one of the best reads from this week. This is by a guy, Michael McMillan. Michael A. McMillan. This is from 1971, and McMillan did this comic. This was the first and I think only complete full issue of a comic that he did. He had a couple of backup stories in some other underground comics. But he was 37 years old when he created this book. He was really influenced by the Harry Who, which was a Boston, or were they Chicago? I don't remember now. I don't remember. Anyway, there was a group of artists, the Harry Who, that kind of produced work from, I think, like 1966 to 1969 or 1970 or something. And they were kind of part of this art movement. There were 6 of them in the group, 4 men, 2 women. And they were part of a group of artists called the Imagists, from what I understand. The cartoonist Kayfabe guys did a video where they looked through a book of the Harry Who and their work. So just search the Harry Who, H-A-I-R-Y, on YouTube, and you should come across that cartoonist Kayfabe one. It's incredible looking work, really, really amazing stuff. And for their kind of shows, for their group shows, they would put together these little catalogs, and they were basically like comics. Even though they weren't working within the kind of comics medium, a lot of their language was taken from advertising and comic books and kind of pop culture stuff of the day. So apparently Mr. McMillan here saw some of their work and then saw Zap Comics #1 and was like, this stuff is incredible. I've got to make myself a comic. So he did this, brought it to Apex Novelties, and they said, yes, absolutely. We'll put this out. Yeah, so they put it out, and he kind of had a bit of a resurgence in kind of the 2012-ish. Dan Nadell put out a book, I think it was called Art in Time, forgotten cartoonist or unknown cartoonist from the 1940s to the 1980s. He was in that, and I think also Dan Nadel put together a show where he showed some of his original art there was a publisher called Picture Book or Picture Box. I can't remember which one. So through them, he did like a showing of some Macmillan art. I keep saying Macmillan now. Yeah, Macmillan. And I was questioning whether I was right about that. But this was an absolute blast. The stories themselves are just these kind of silly little short stories for the most part. But again, like I said, it's panel after panel of just amazing looking stuff. And a lot of the stuff that ends up appealing to me about these books is just the uniqueness of the art. It just, even though there's certain things that you can see, there's absolutely a little bit of like Sergeant Pepper, the Yellow Submarine there, that animated show. And you can see, especially once you see the Harry Who's artwork, you can see a lot of similars there, but it still kind of has its own language. And again, from a guy, it's always great getting comics from a guy whose background wasn't growing up reading a ton of comics, wanting to make superhero books. As far as I know, the little bit that I know about him, he didn't grow up wanting to one day write a Fantastic Four story or whatever it was, right? Obviously, especially considering it was 1971, that's a very short time, and he was 37. It does make sense that he wouldn't have grown up that way, but I find that stuff sometimes even more appealing because you're coming at it from as kind of an outsider, so to speak. And I think that really gives you an opportunity to see things a little more with your own kind of vision, as opposed to it being clouded by everything else that you've read at that point. So another one that's highly recommended, Daryl D. Keep your eye out. I know that you hit a lot of the Underground Comics boxes. If you see this, buy yourself a copy. You won't regret it. Even that cover is incredibly fun. I know that you're sticking to, for the most part, Richard Corbin stuff, but I know you have quite a collection of Underground comics too, so keep a lookout for that one. Half Price Books, for closest to you is 3 hours away. Just found out about Cartoonist Kayfabe. Those guys seem to know all about these comics. Yeah, they're pretty good to listen to. Look at this. No charge. Look at that. Okay. Last but certainly not least, the one and only Mr. Harry Nordlinger. I finally picked up the final 2 issues of Vacuum Decay, his kind of anthology series that he's been putting out for quite a while now. Each of these are thick volumes, which is good because they're a pricey $10 a pop. But honestly, I think it's worth every penny. I'm going to give him the shout out that I always do, because I do really feel like this needs to be acknowledged at every single turn, because I know how difficult it must be for some of these self-publishers. I love the fact that he keeps this stuff in print. Talked about it this afternoon as well. Just taking issue number 4 as an example. This is the 4th printing of just issue number 4. He's done that with all of the issues. They're into kind of multiple printings. And I really have to give him a huge amount of credit for that. One of the things that's toughest about reading these books and talking to people to try to recommend stuff is just the simple fact that if you miss the boat, there's so many times where you'll never have a chance to find it. So it makes it difficult to kind of share some of this stuff with everybody when I know that some of it you're just not going to find. Otherwise, that's all my channel would fucking be, is these obscure long box comics that I've hunted for, that you may have varied success, and stuff like this that you'd have no success in finding. So this one you can get straight from him, vacuumdecay.com. I would highly recommend you go and check it out. It is a horror anthology. It's pretty visceral horror. One of the things that I always end up saying to myself after every issue is, how is it fucking possible that this issue was even more disturbing than the previous issue that I bought? This is some dark stuff in here. And I love it. I absolutely love it. I'm a fan of horror movies. I'm a fan of exploitation movies. I'm a fan of extreme music. I'm a fan of all these kind of things, as you well know if you've been watching my channel long enough. This is an incredible book. It's one of the best anthologies going, if not the best anthology going. It will absolutely be on my year-end list, especially now that I have the whole thing. I'm probably going to sit back down with these, and over, between now and the end of the year, I'd like to read them all again from the beginning. Incredible artists associated with this series, guys like David Enos, that I'm a big fan of. This one has Mike Diana is in here, the infamous Mike Diana of Boiled Angel fame, who was, I believe, the first cartoonist in the United States to get taken to court and censored. And basically his penalty was that he could never draw a comic ever again. And obviously that went really well. We get some Rory Hayes type of vibes in this story here. That's very much a callback to Mr. Rory Hayes from the Undergrounds. Here's the Mike Diana piece, Serial Killer Corky. And this has kind of always been his style throughout his career. If I didn't say it already, there's a great documentary on Mike Diana that I would recommend. The name of it, I'm blanking on right now. I should have brought it down because I have the DVD. And then here's every issue has some Harry Nordlinger in it as well, too. And this is his story for this one called Yawning, which out of all of the Nordlinger stuff I've read, I think this is probably my favorite one. Just really interesting stories, really unique visions from all of the creators. This one I thought was really good. There's this guy isn't sleeping, so he's hallucinating. And I think one of the things in this particular story that works so well for me is how Nordlinger kind of puts the pages together. You start to get that sense that you haven't slept either. And it's specifically due to these couple of pages. He's got this kind of pointillist style that he uses sometimes. You can see here on these cockroaches that are just crawling on top of the panels and almost off of the page. And our final kind of cracked window here, our cracked panel, basically. Incredible work. In the Shaolin Cowboy series that just came out recently, there was some pages there where we had the I think it was birds coming down on the Shaolin Cowboy, and he was doing the sound effects right to the edge of the page. And the effect that had on you as a reader, I think this is a similar effect. This feels like these are sort of in your imagination, and because there's these pixelated style to it, they kind of take on this blurry effect that separates itself from the actual book. Amazing, truly amazing stuff. And we get some more of his kind of style there too. So really, really great. I'll just show you a couple of pages. This is Vacuum Decay number 5 with a beautiful front cover there. Yeah, I won't show you too much in this one, but it's more of the same. It's all black and white work. Here's the, Here's the list of people. Andrew Pilkington, J. Webster Sharp, Harry Nordlinger, Ian Sundahl, Cameron Zavala, Michael Falotico, Pat Aluzio, Carmichael Jones, and then the back cover by Mr. Tom Neely. So there you have it, Vacuum Decay. Grew up reading Spider-Man and Batman and wanted to get into these more kind of comics. We just don't know what's good. What's good independent comics? 8-Ball is good. Yeah, 8-Ball is great. Honestly, just pick up anything. Just go into some comic shops and dig through the bins. I enjoyed Dan Clow's new one, Monica. Monica is a great fucking read. I'm going to give it a few more weeks. I would like to talk about it. I would put the word out there to people if anybody's interested in coming on the channel just to talk about that book. We had done it in the past with a book like Monsters, where we had some people just sitting and talking about the book. I'd be glad to host something like that. If anybody is into it, just kind of keep in touch. It wouldn't be for probably another month. I really wanted to give people a chance to read the book and discover it on their own, because you can't really talk about it without a bunch of spoilers. So I'm probably going to give it a few more weeks here, but keep me posted if you want to jump on and chat about it, because I'd love to hear other people's perspective on it. As far as the reading for this week, that is it, my friends. I did not get into any Cerebus this week. It is standing by here, Jaka's Story Part 6, sitting down front. But as my reading goes, I think Gore Vidal has said the same thing in the past too. My reading is really much, my mood really depends on what I'm going to read. Yeah, so this is kind of what I've immersed myself into this week. But next week we'll be back with a whole other stack of books. Thanks very much, everybody, for hanging out in the chat. Gore had mentioned Barnes & Noble had a 50% off sale for Criterion Collection. I'd encourage everybody to check out some Criterion titles. I would also recommend that everybody sign up on the Criterion website. They also do 50% off sales directly. So as much as I appreciate supporting stores, support Criterion directly by ordering from them when they have some 50% off sales. The other bonus with going straight to Criterion is they're going to have a lot more in stock than maybe a Barnes & Noble. And my recommendation, if you do hit up any of those sales, Criterion has done Ghost World. That's a really good one, but Come and See, considering what's going on in the world these days, Come and See, I think, is mandatory anti-war movies. And I think it's one that should shake you to your core, but I think everybody needs to be shaken to their core. So it gives you a little clearer perspective on what's going on out there and how you should feel about it. You should feel disgusted. You should feel scared. You should feel uneasy. We all should be feeling uneasy considering what's going on. So thanks very much, everybody. And we will talk to you next week.